You said. Get started. We are gonna start with our favorite thing. Good news. Yes. Good news. Anybody got good news they want to share?
I don't have any.
No good news. Wow. Colton, how do you feel about that?
Oh,
I was about to say.
That was the same amount of enthusiasm. Yeah, Brooklyn.
Successfully went through my first after school practice of show fire and I survived.
We'll see about the second one. I've heard the second one's even harder.
I was ready to go to sleep.
Yeah. That's super exciting. Other good news? We should actually like put you two on the opposite sides of the classroom. You two together, like a recipe for distraction. Go ahead, Lace.
That one girl that we reached out to that I started working out with. She's like so cute. We work out like twice a week together. And she texted me a couple of days ago and was like, hey, I'd love to get like just lunch with you. Yeah. And I don't know, like she's always busy whenever we have whenever we have church stuff going on. So we haven't really been able to connect a lot through that. She works on the weekends. But I'm just really encouraged. She's 18 and like initiates as if she's, I don't know,
adult.
but yeah, 18 is an adult though.
Yeah.
But, like, so I'm just super encouraged by that, and she's just like she's always texting me, and it's really cool to see. So her name's Taylor, if you can be frank. But yeah.
Thank you for that. Other good news?
I have good news.
Go for it, Cody.
So my grandpa a couple weeks ago had his follow-up appointment with the cardiologist, and he's all cleared for that, so he can drive and stuff again. So his heart surgery went well. So
Nice.
that's some good news.
Yeah, that's awesome. What?
It's a security guard listening.
No, it's critical man. The secret other good news? Anybody? Anything? Jacob, you even said that you were gonna start coming with good news.
Oh, yeah, so, yeah, I don't know if we classify it as good news, but, Beck's high school, like her high school best friend is coming in this weekend, we're housing them, so. And then we're gonna go over to, they're gonna be here Friday sometime in the afternoon, evening. And then, Saturday morning, we're going with them to the Mothman Festival, so that'll be fun.
Yeah. That's super fun.
Yeah.
That counts as good news.
It does?
Yeah.
Excellent.
Anybody else? Good news?
Our bathroom is coming along pretty well, and we are going to start painting our house, this weekend, next week. So I'm pretty excited about that.
Yeah. That's super exciting. What color are they gonna paint it?
That's probably a question.
What color are you painting your house?
I don't know the exact term or name.
The bathroom's gonna be blue,
Red.
the living room's gonna be gray, and it's deep in.
It's like a kind of like a gray, it's a neutral.
Okay.
So I've been looking up, I've been researching like east facing rooms. And it gets evening light, it gets like a gold tone, so you wanna have like grays that have a purple undertone.
To cancel it out.
Yeah.
It's purple and yellow are coming.
Yeah.
Wow. That is a lot more thought than I would have put in.
Yeah.
That is impressive. I'd have just picked a color. Going with fuchsia. Other good news? Cool. We always have good news with campus. Campus, I feel like, is like. It, you know, it's like the weather, it changes every other day, like you never know what you're gonna get. But we had a guy who came to Bible Talk last week. And was just like sitting there, I had like reached out to him previously, but was sitting there and didn't realize that Bible Talk was there. He like actually read the back of the card and thought it was a different place. So he was like, oh, that's what that means. I was like, yes, that's what that means. But he sat through and like joined the discussion last week, showed up again this week. And it was just really cool to see, like, you know, it's not like I texted him beforehand or anything, like he just kind of showed up on his own and we talked afterwards, like he had asked a couple questions, and so it was just cool to see like somebody who legitimately was just sitting there. That seems to be our most effective model so far. But it's just cool to see that, and then just to reconnect with people, rebuild relationships from previous years, and see like, you know, even though students go home for the summer, they come back and you know, we can just reconnect again. So I got to reconnect with a guy today, and then I'm working out with a guy tomorrow too. So it's just kind of cool, and they're both like very like tied into the community. And that's one of the things that we've been noticing is that like you ask anybody who comes to like a campus ministry thing, like, oh, how'd you get involved with that campus ministry? It's like, oh, my friend brought me, or like, you know, this kid on my floor was going, so I went. And so it's like very people move together. And so it's just been cool to kind of connect with people who are also connected with a lot of students on campus, so. Yeah. I'll clap for my own. Well, let's pray and then dive into midweek. Lace, could you pray for us?
Dear God, thank you so much for just letting us all be able to be here tonight. I'm so grateful for fall weather starting. And I'm just so grateful that we're able to have these kinds of discussions, God. I pray that you just allow this space to be a safe space that we can share, and just be vulnerable and grow together, God. I pray that this can be unifying, and that whatever message Sean is speaking on, God, that you just guide his thoughts and guide his words. But I love you and praise on your son's name. Amen.
Amen. So this past Sunday, we did part 1 of our social justice stuff. I don't think it was supposed to be part 1 and part 2, but it ended up being part 1 and part 2. And so we had like our first kind of lesson about what God desires from a social justice perspective. And so we talked about Leviticus 19. Starting in verse 9. It says, when you reap the harvest of your land, do not reap the very edges of your field or gather the gleanings of your harvest. Do not go over your vineyard a second time or pick up the grapes that have fallen. Leave them for the poor and the alien. I am the Lord your God. Do not steal, do not lie, do not deceive one another. Do not swear falsely by my name, and so profane the name of your God. I am the Lord. Do not defraud your neighbor or rob him. Do not hold back the wages of a hired man overnight. Do not curse the deaf or put a stumbling block in front of the blind, but fear your God. I am the Lord. Do not pervert justice. Do not show partiality to the poor or favoritism to the great, but judge your neighbor fairly. Do not go about spreading slander among your people. Do not do anything that endangers your neighbor's life. I am the Lord. Do not hate your brother in your heart. Rebuke your neighbor frankly, so you will not share in his guilt. Do not seek revenge or bear a grudge against one of your people, but love your neighbor as yourself. I am the Lord. And so that was kind of the main scripture that we went over. We talked about how God's view of social justice is meant to be relational. Like it's the call isn't to be involved in all of these massive movements that are trying to change big cultural movements. It's about a personal, personally implementing social justice in our lives. So living out that call. And so does anybody have thoughts on the lesson? Anybody have questions about it? Let's start with that.
Pearl and I weren't there this past Sunday, so we don't know what was said.
There you go, you got your summary. We'll continue, we'll go over some of it. It's recorded. Yes. Yeah.
I'm happy that Rich is kind of going over it. I'm not a huge social justice warrior, but at one point he had mentioned like there are so many different things that we can be worried about and all the things we're not doing to help XYZ. But I like that he had said like despite all that, we can focus on being disciples and like what that means. And not so much focusing on all the other things like plastic straws and I don't know.
Sea turtles.
I love sea turtles, but
Yeah.
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 Yeah, I think, he maybe said it differently, but part of, what I took was if we're doing what we're supposed to be doing as disciples, loving one another, loving our God, then all of those social justice things fall under that. Like if we were all doing our part, as far as especially anything relationally, social justice wise, we wouldn't have an issue, but of course, we aren't all doing our part, or not everyone's Christians or sinners, obviously. But I think about that even like there's other, topics in the Bible, even, end of the world stuff and all of that, like, I remember dealing with in the past, in churches and just remembering like, but that doesn't change our mission. Our mission actually should just only be even more, time sensitive. We're supposed to still be doing the same things and making disciples, loving one another, and so I think I appreciated that we should do that even more, especially in today's world, as far as loving one another, but all of those things, if you're doing those things, falls under that, not that we turn a blind eye.
Right.
But also I think sometimes we can shift our focus too much on those things, and then we negate the other really important things.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that, the redirection of social justice, thinking of it instead of as a movement and as like these big things that we have to be a part of and we have to show our support for, rather than just taking that and making it, no, it's how we treat people in our day-to-day, like as long as we are doing those things, we are actually living out social justice. As long as we're doing all the things that Leviticus 19 says, like, do not lie, do not deceive one another, like those. And we'll talk about it in a little bit, but there are kind of 5 categories which God lists as, hey, these are areas where I expect you to carry out social justice in your relationships. And so Rich's main point was just the call for social justice is for God's people to treat God's people like God's people. I don't know, it's very catchy. It's very well said. But the 5 categories that he listed are sharing financially. And so that's that first part of not gleaning to the edges of your field, leaving room for the poor, the alien, the orphan, and the widow to glean the edges. speaking truthfully, do not lie, don't deceive each other, don't swear falsely. The third one was caring for the weak. It says, do not defraud your neighbor or rob him. Do not hold back the wages of a hired man overnight. And that idea of when you're in a position of power, don't withhold what other people are depending on. And he talked about judging fairly was the fourth one, judging between your neighbor fairly, and not treating it says, do not show partiality to the poor or favoritism to the great, but judge your neighbor fairly. And then the last one's dealing with conflict. Do not hate your brother in your heart, rebuke your neighbor frankly, so they will not share in his guilt. And so those are kind of the 5 areas. We can write them down, I guess.
Do it.
I was gonna say. I have a better one for.
I got one of them typed. We finished all 5.
They're like, this was not helpful. And so,
The lefty,
yes, you get to deal with my terrible handwriting,
nah, it's good.
except for that eye.
I'm reading as Finna.
Finna.
Oh, they better go, okay, never mind.
There we go.
Sharing
Sharing financially.
gonna be lit.
Yes.
The show we have. It is a different level of talent to be able to write left-handed and not smear your stuff off with your own hands. You can't raise your hand because you're just gonna.
Let's go with that. And then. Okay, so out of those 5. What do you guys feel like you're doing well with when it comes to acting out social justice in our relationships? Where are we falling short? And what is one thing you can do this week to implement social justice in your life? So we'll start with the first one. What do you feel like is going well with when it comes to living out these 5 different things? I was bugged by.
Oh, it says we. Now I can.
Yes.
I think Carl and I, when it comes to these 5. I think we do a pretty good job with the first one. We try to not hold back, financially with people. Especially decided, people come over our house, like the Shark Food report for the women's thing.
Oh, me and Jacob have been talking about that.
Good.
It was.
That's good.
And that's just something we kind of have a conviction about, like, if people are gonna be in our house, we want to roll our entire bank account on them while they're there. Not literally, but like that,
Gonna say I'll stop by.
yeah. But that be the attitude, like, when
Yeah.
people come to our house, like, we just kind of want to adopt that culture from that then,
Yeah.
just empty our cupboards for people. The other ones, I don't know. Maybe judging fairly, we probably maybe do pretty well at it. I don't know. At least for me, I don't know how well I do with speaking truthfully. It can be a lot easier for me to just withhold the truth and sake of hurting feelings. And I guess that kind of deals with dealing with conflict as well.
Other thoughts?
Some of these are so hard because I don't wanna be like, yeah, like we're good at that, cause I feel like we could do better. Like even with like sharing financially, like I feel like, okay, like we tick off all the boxes that like are biblical, you know, but.
Yeah.
That doesn't like, and we make room in our savings for like extra. But I definitely still feel like I'm someone who's like, once that extra amount has gone, then it's like, all right, we're gonna crack down the budget.
Well, it is interesting, because I was thinking about our budget, and we tithe. But we don't necessarily set. Like, when they're talking about like leaving the edges of your field,
Yeah,
they're already tithing from what they have.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Collected. And so it's on top of their tithe that they leave the edges, they don't clean the edges. And so I was thinking about that, and I was like, I don't know if we actually, like, what it's talking about there, I don't know if we actually do that.
that's all of them. Like I could be like,
Yeah.
I feel like, you know. I deal with conflict, but it doesn't mean it's like, well, you know, so I don't know, I feel like they're like all. Areas where it's hard to confidently say like, yeah, we do this
Yeah.
100% well.
Does everybody feel that way? It seems like everybody's feeling that way.
I think, well, Cody said he doesn't know how he does not speak English really. I think he does great voice, like. I don't know, he says stuff sometimes, I'm like. Oh my god, like, you did that whole time. And with dealing with conflict, I think that's one of his strengths. That is not my strength. I think that. I'm very careful when I do speak truthfully. And deal with conflict, because a lot of times I have a battle in my mind, like, is this actually something that's a problem, or is it just me? Like being sensitive or judgmental or something like that. So I think I definitely could ask more questions, like when it comes to speaking truthfully, like this is what I'm thinking, this is what I'm seeing. I don't know if that's true, but this is honestly what I'm seeing, what I'm thinking. Judging fairly. I don't know what that means.
Yeah.
Or like what that can relate to. And then caring for the weak. I think naturally that is probably the one that I am strongest in. I think it's just in my nature. I think that's why I picked the career that I picked, because that's just something that I am naturally drawn to do.
Yeah, that's why she married me.
Oh my god. But yeah, do you have any examples or ideas of what judging fairly could relate to?
Yeah, it's interesting, because I thought of that one as like the least applicable, like. I don't have many situations where people are like fighting and come up to me and say, we need a decision, like, we need somebody to judge here, I'm like, oh. But what. Oh, so close. What's interesting is what Leviticus is talking about there is, he says, don't show partiality to the poor, And don't favoritism to the great, yeah. And so I was thinking about how I don't necessarily, have these times where I'm like, oh, I must decide. But I was thinking about how easy it can be to treat certain people differently. Like, I see a football player and I'm like, oh, big football player, this guy, I can mess with this guy, or like, whatever it is. Just like the optics, how much I like how I treat people can change based off of that. There's this is probably exposing more than I want to, but so I was flying down 6th Ave like 2 weeks ago, and this car was making a left right where there's like the parking garage and there's like the right turn lane. Well, this car slows down to make a left. I was like, I'm not gonna slow down and like stop behind this guy making a left. So I went to like the side to go around him. Well, that guy had stopped for a kid to cross the street. So I'm like screaming down the road, and this kid, I like see him come out in front of the car that stopped, and I like slammed on my brakes, and this kid like looked at me and goes, "What are you doing?" And so I was like, "My bad," like whatever. But I recognized him. Like I've seen him on campus before. Yes, I know. Withhold your judgment, please. But I've seen him on campus before, and I thought about like,
Judge Fairley,
yes,
sorry. I'm late on that.
thank you.
Yeah.
But I was thinking about like, man, what happens if I see him on campus? Like, in my defense, there's no crosswalk there. Like, he should have like looked and paid attention. Like that car never should have stopped for him to cross. Also, to be fair, I shouldn't have been speeding. Or tried to go around the car. But I was thinking about like, man, what would I say if I like saw him? Like, I was literally thinking, I was like, because I parked at home and then walked to campus, and I was like, man, if I see that kid, I have to go apologize. Like, I have to say to him, like, hey, sorry, I almost killed you today. Like,
Great conversation starter.
yeah, right.
Hey.
Hey, I am so sorry. Yeah. But like I think about how those little things, like I'm the type of person that like I would cross the street and have somebody almost hit me, and then like not like curse somebody out on campus, but be like, dude, what the heck? Like, what is wrong with you? I think about how easy it is to take those little things and make them like that is put somebody in a box and say that is how I am going to treat you, versus being gracious and loving with that. So I don't know if that's entirely what they're talking about there, but
That makes sense. Yeah, that makes a lot more sense. I think for me, my judgment can actually come not necessarily on like socially support, but more like on the doctors that I work with. Like, you should know better because you've gone through so much education,
Yeah.
and but you're just dumb.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'm even thinking today, like, based off of what you just said, there was a situation today where a patient was diagnosed with cancer today.
Yeah.
And the doctor came in after the colonoscopy and told his wife and his daughter before the patient had gotten back from the procedure room. And the daughter or the wife came out to me and she was just weeping, and she was like, is he gonna come talk to my husband when he wakes up from sedation? And I was like, well, hold on, like, it was just the whole thing.
Yeah.
Anyway, I had to call the doctor, tell him to come talk to the patient, and he called him on the phone to tell him what he found.
Wow,
I was livid,
no,
just thinking like, how, which I actually said that. Now I'm thinking back, I'm like, dang, I was not judging fairly, because I'm like, I literally said, I was like, that is pathetic, that he seriously just called on the phone to tell, he didn't have the decency to go in that room and talk to the patient face to face to tell him, you have cancer that's so bad that you can see it with the naked eye. Like that is, yeah, I definitely was very vocal about that at work today, so I think that is an area that I am not, that is definitely probably my weakest on that list, especially when it comes to people who I think they should know better.
No.
So, yeah.
I got another example of like judging fairly, since I guess we're kind of talking about those, as a lieutenant in the army, I'm in charge of doing investigations. And this one particular investigation, was a soldier who previously was assigned to me, and he came late by like a massive amount of time, like 3 hours late.
Wow.
It made me pretty upset. And his excuse was just, it was trash. And then like 3 months later, I had to investigate a sergeant that was verbally mean to him and toxic. And so it was during that, I did have to kind of check myself, like, I need to judge this fairly and make sure this justice is received.
Yep.
And not let my personal feelings get into this. How the sergeant was is basically like. The kid was just not very good as a soldier, super lazy, just excuse driven, just not a good person. And that was what he was complaining about, was that the sergeant was being mean to him about that. And it's like, well, you kind of are, man. And so, but he said some things he shouldn't have said, and so that's what I was there to investigate.
Oh.
So that's like cool. And I think that can apply to like anybody here, like just with like your job and stuff, like not letting I don't know, things get in the way of that.
yeah, I'd imagine it comes up with kids too. Or at least I see it in my family. I was telling Tony last night, my dad, I guess, has just like stopped talking to my little brother. He just doesn't like the kid, like, I don't know what, we're like,
That's not true. That's him.
anyway,
Sean.
I stopped talking to him, so.
I
What?
said, Sean, do you wanna share some stuff?
But yeah, I'd imagine that comes up with kids as a pretty dynamic at times.
I think about it in a way also is like if somebody is kind of going through studies, that is, and it kind of depends on their background too, but like. You know, everyone's different, but like, I'm not gonna come to somebody, and I'm not gonna correct Cody the same way that I would. For instance, Jackson when he was studying.
Yeah.
You know, it's like,
Yeah.
I gotta do it fair. I
Yeah,
gotta judge it fairly and give kind of context to the individual and their situation. And then also their history too, like, you know, people that come from different paths. They've been fighting demons that we don't even know about.
yeah,
Right? So that's how I think about it. That's one aspect that I see.
yeah, it's interesting because I feel like that plays into like caring for the weak part too, of like.
Yeah.
Understanding people's strengths and weaknesses, and then like. Bearing with them as they grow and mature. I think that is a very challenging thing to do at times. Like, this is the 10th conversation we've had about reading your Bible, like, you know, like, yeah, I can just be not calling anybody else. Yeah. But I mean, I remember I had a guy, I was discipling a guy, and we talked about pride literally for an entire semester. Every single week we talked about his pride. And then the second semester we switched up and I decided to talk about humility, because I'm like, hey, maybe if you're not getting this, you'll understand how to go after humility. Literally nothing changed. So he went and worked at like a church camp over the summer and got humbled, just like his character just got torn apart and came back and basically was like, yeah, now I'm humble. And we were like, oh God. Here we go. Yes. But I think that one can be tricky, because there's like no, some of it is like when somebody has a firm conviction, but it's just different from your firm conviction. Well, not much you can do about that. Like you have to accept where people are at, So, yeah. Other thoughts on any of these?
I mean, I feel like I'm not very, I'm not perfect enough, like any of them. But I feel like in being in this group and being with this church, I've grown in them a lot. But, nobody's perfect, so I'm still not, I'm still feeling a little bit, I ain't gonna lie. Mom asked me if I do want to do that, and yes. But, yeah, it's still like, I can still get a little rowdy when I get upset or. I know that, especially when I get irritated, it's very easy for me to just call everybody stupid and like go to bed. So, yeah, it's definitely something that I am working on. All of them.
I do the same thing when Lacey irritates me.
Oh, jeez. Call everyone.
Especially.
Call everyone up. I wonder why you did
I
that.
wonder why I have so many voicemails.
Got a lot.
I'm actually gonna call you later tonight just so you.
But, again. I'm kind of with other people. I feel like a lot of people kind of been saying the same thing, but it's like, I don't think we're supposed to, and I don't necessarily think we're supposed to be 100 at any of them necessarily, but I think having that that sober judgment of like where I'm at on all of them is the important part. I could go through all of them, but I feel like, I don't know. The one that's like blatantly just lacking personally in my life that I see is caring for the weak. I know that we are making moves towards strides towards doing that as far as like community service and stuff. Which I'm happy about, but I think about what I've done on my own. And aside from like occasionally giving some loose change and things like that, or like offering water, I've been doing that. And so like, that's why I've been happy about the movement, that you guys have been taking it this past, month or so that we've been going over it. But that I feel like I don't, it's not on my mind enough, I feel like. So yeah, that's all I'll say.
And it's like, I think each of these is. The challenging part is each of these touches a different aspect of our character. And so like where we're at depends largely on like where our character is and where we're strong, where we're weak. So I think that's the challenging part of it. But I think what's cool is that we're all with that, like we as a community are able to live these out and like not only help each other to grow and like spur each other on, but also like we collectively live these things out. It's kind of weird to think of like, oh, there's the dealing with conflict section of the body, or like, but I think it's cool to think of the community, the people of God coming together to meet this this kind of shared goal, the shared vision of discipleship. Yeah. Go ahead, Jackson. I was gonna call on you, but then you raised your hand, so.
No, the first thing I wanted to say was, I was talking to you about it earlier. But the big reason I'm like really comfortable with my disability is because of y'all. So in terms of caring for others or caring for the weak, I would just say, don't sell yourself short on it, you know. You gotta believe everything. So, yeah. But in terms of individually, yeah, I remember judging fairly has really been not showing impartiality has really been on my heart recently. Especially as we're going through the prophets in my course. That's like one of the biggest things that God hits at whenever he's addressing them in the prophets. It's like I remember my professor saying, you know, a great way of like applying that in a modern sense is like, what do you think of whenever you see like a homeless guy walking down the street? You know, he told a story about like he would see people because he does work with the homeless. You know, he'd go up to them because he knows them and end up talking like they're friends, but there's even people in his church who will cross the street and like avoid them. It's like, that's like, I don't know, that kind of hit home a little bit for me. But even with what you're saying about people on campus, like, do I look at people in different ways? And does that affect me like sharing the gospel? You know what I mean?
Yep.
So, yeah.
Yeah, our banner for our campus ministry, our like tagline is love God, love others. And I purposely made it others rather than love people. Because I think it calls to mind, like we all have people who we other. Who are like, this is the in group, there's the out group. And so, not that people read that and consciously think, oh, he didn't say love people, he said love people, like, but like that was like my mentality with it was like, no, those are the people God calls us to love. The people that are difficult, like the people that we don't, you know, like, it's what credit is it to us if we love people who love us, right? So, other thoughts about living out social justice?
We still on the first question?
Huh?
We still on the first question?
We're kind of, you know, we're all over the place.
Oh.
Yeah, we kind of lost track of the questions.
Yeah, I forgot the work question.
You telling me it's what you keeping track of the time? Like I have to be out of here by 8 o'clock. Well, since Lahan's pushing us towards announcement. In terms of announcements, the flag football tournament is this Saturday. Yeah. I think it's just me and Lahan.
Not going.
What? Get out of here.
Yeah.
Mothman Festival.
Well, then I decided I talked to you and literally just, I was like, okay, I'm going then.
I literally was like, I'm not going.
Wow. All right, well, I'll let you know how the flag football tournament goes then, I guess. Although Dustin did, I'm getting a ride up with Dustin and he was like, yeah, like I can pick you up like Taze Valley area. He's like, let's meet at 6 a.m. I was like, never mind, man, I can't make it. Well, the next announcement is the Mothman Festival is this weekend. Apparently everybody else is excited about that one. But that is up in Point Pleasant. If you need a ride or whatever, talk to each other.
Greek Fest is this weekend too.
Hey, I need a ride.
Yes. No way.
Where?
It's at the Greek Orthodox Church. It's down here, Ritter Park. You can type it in GPS.
Yeah, it's right there. That's the one that's when you come off the highway, it's you take that first left. It's Washington Boulevard. It goes up like snakes around. Yeah. Abby, do you know the times on that?
I don't know the exact times, but it's happening Friday and Saturday. So if you want, I will say that if you want food though, you gotta go.
Yeah.
Because that line, everybody loves like baklava.
Yes.
The rooms.
Yep. Yeah, well,
It's
cool.
it's really cool.
We'll add that one in, Greek Fest.
Yeah.
It's Friday,
I've been-
Saturday.
I've been, what's that? I've been typing it up all week.
I thought it was like a
fraternity store.
Yeah.
No, it's like.
Different kind of Greek.
It's like.
Other announcements, we have church on campus this Sunday. We will be in room 154 in Smith Hall, right downstairs at 10:30. Lahan is preaching.
Oh.
I think I got the other photos.
No, I'm pretty sure Tony's preaching.
More than
He
5
knows.
minutes.
He was advocating for that, so. A couple of things that we need to talk through. The children's ministry sign up is up for the next rotation. So for October, November, December. And they have asked us to help and serve in a couple of, actually. They asked for a couple of dates. You have it? Okay.
October 5th, is you wanna write it down? And then October 15th, October 29th, November 5th, November 19th.
That's like every Sunday.
It was 4 Sundays out of like the. I think we're there like 6 or 8 times or something like that. But so those are the Sundays they've asked us to help. They need 1 garden teacher and 1 tower teacher. No,
No,
they need
they just need the 2. I think the lead and the assistant,
for garden.
yeah,
So yeah, they need
they're the young ones.
a lead teacher for the kids like 3 and under. So Georgie's age down. But they need a lead teacher and an assistant teacher. The assistant teacher doesn't really need to know anything. The lead teacher just needs to know the cradle roll. And we have a video of that we can send to you. But we're asking that if you haven't signed up previously, to sign up for one of those 8 spots.
Me and Abby have 10-15.
10-15.
But they put it up, like they have said they understand how difficult it is for us to travel up there, so they really don't want to put this on us, but. There's,
One and
but like this is like 4 Sundays. That's all they really need from us, or 1 from us, and then if we can just, I feel like that's enough for all the families to kind of take one, and yeah.
yes, yeah, and they purposely didn't ask us to help over the summer. And so they all take up like 3-month rotations, where they are doing children's ministry every Sunday. All the Sundays that we're not there, they're taking care of it. And so this is what they asked us to do. So if you are interested in signing up for any of those, let me know. Other things, there is a marriage date night on September 30th. There's a Saturday. And so there would be like a lesson portion that we will kind of zoom into Charleston for, but then there'll also be just kind of married people stuff.
Oh, so we're not going to Charleston first?
No, yeah, we'll do our own separate thing here in Huntington.
So what
We
are we,
figured that would be a little easier. Yeah.
what are we zooming in for exactly, just the lesson portion?
Right, they have like a lesson portion that we'll zoom in and join and be a part of,
Okay,
and then we'll kind of do our own,
you have like a time,
yes. We'll do 7 o'clock.
and is that whenever they're doing the Zoom portion of it?
Yes, we hold on, let me check that. Yeah, so there'll be, the plan is kind of like an icebreaker. There'll be like a time of sharing, then a devotional thought, some minute to win at games, and then fellowship. So we'll join for, we'll kind of do, I think, the icebreaker on our own, is I think how it goes, and then we'll do like the devotional together. But with that, we have one, Jacob, could you and Beck figure out some minute to win at games?
Oh, yeah, sure.
Okay. I can touch base more about how many and whatever. And then, does anybody want to host that?
Take care of the Honda.
Sure, what about it?
Cool.
Easy.
Joke's on you, it's 30-minute drive.
I mean. We'll zoom into your house.
Yeah.
So wait, you say someone else did?
Yeah, sure.
Cool.
What day is it?
Saturday, November 30th.
You'll September
September.
30th.
That is September.
And then
Look at that, say November.
Yeah.
Do know that.
Just a little further down.
It is really.
Yeah.
So we'd have to do it early.
Okay. I have it down as 7 in my calendar. I don't know if that is accurate.
No, it's at 6.
It's at 6?
It's at 6.
Okay,
I was thinking like.
That's 6 o'clock.
Well, yeah, I don't.
There we go, good to know.
Just like traveling.
Yes, 6 o'clock. I will edit that in the calendar. The other thing is that, in the Slack, I just posted the Croctoberfest sign up. And so they're looking for help with setup, with cleanup, and for help with food. And so, all of the stuff should be in there. Check it out. Yes.
Kate volunteered.
Wow.
We'll sign them up.
If they allow.
Hey, I don't care. Cool. Sounds good. Other things, Family Friday, this Friday. At Portillo's. Family Friday, this Friday, at the Portillo's, 7 o'clock. So be there, be square.
I will definitely.
I think that is it. Did I miss any announcements? Midweek, we'll be right back here next week. So, see you then. All right. Everybody dismissed.